Did you know many Croydon residents can't name the MPs who represent them in Parliament? When it comes to serious issues like housing, crime, and rising council taxes, these are the people you voted for to be your voice. Croydon Council is facing ongoing financial challenges and has been unable to meet its obligations in many key areas. We cannot allow them to hide behind bankruptcy while our taxes continue to climb. This video introduces your local MPs and provides their direct contact details. You have a voice. It's time to use it. If the council isn't delivering, reach out to your MP and demand better. Who represents you in Croydon? Croydon East, MP Natasha Irons, Labour. Email natasha.irons.mp@parliament.uk. Phone 028,191 2482. Croydon West, MP Sarah Jones, Labour. Email sarah.jones.mp@parliament.uk. Phone 028,191 7066. Croydon South, MP Chris Philp, Conservative. Email chris.philp.mp@parliament.uk. Phone 027,219 8026. Streatham and Croydon North, MP Steve Reid, Labour. Email steve.reid.mp@parliament.uk. Phone 027,219 7297. It is vital that Croydon residents know which members of Parliament represent their interests. While Croydon Council continues to struggle with its financial recovery, many essential services, such as housing and crime prevention, are falling short of expectations. As elected officials, your MPs are responsible for advocating for you when the local government fails to fulfill its duties. This video outlines the contact information for each Croydon MP. If you are concerned about rising council taxes or the quality of local services, please use these details to make your voice heard. Croydon, do you know who represents you? With council taxes rising and local services like housing and safety struggling, it's more important than ever to contact your MP. The council is elected to serve you, and if they are delivering, your MP is your direct line to Parliament. Watch this video for a full list of Croydon MPs and their contact details. Don't have a voice and not use it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a graduate of the Croydon Youth Philharmonic Orchestra, the Prime Minister will know that youth services can broaden a young person's horizons beyond what they could ever imagine. But with national spending on youth services seeing a 73% decline since 2010, can the Prime Minister outline how this government will bring youth services back into our communities? Will he look at giving them the statutory protections they deserve? And will he visit Croydon East to see firsthand the vital role these services play in my constituency?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my days in the Croydon Youth Philharmonic Orchestra were a long time ago now. But we do fully recognise the importance of youth services to help young people save lives and live safe and healthy lives. We've been developing our plans for the new National Youth Strategy to bring power back to young people and help every young person realise their potential.
Striving to give law-abiding citizens the safety and security they deserve. This settlement will aid us in delivering these aims, and I commend it to the House.
The question is as on the order paper, and I call the Shadow Secretary of State, Chris Philp.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Deputy Speaker. Let me... Go on, this will be good.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I just wanted to, before the Shadow Minister got into his speech, in 2010, the number of police officers in Staffordshire was around 1,000. That has only just got back to that figure this year. We have never had anything but a Conservative Police and Crime Commissioner, and we've only ever had a Conservative Council and a Conservative Government. Is he able to tell me who I should hold accountable for that decimation of neighbourhood policing under the last government?
Well, he raises the last government. The last government left office with record ever numbers of police. In March 2024, when the last recruitment intake took place, there were 149,769 officers by head count, the highest in history, and that was 3,000 higher than in 2010. And since the Shadow Minister asked about outcomes, According to the Crime Survey of England and Wales, overall crime fell during the time of the last government by about 50%. Now, I was about to say, before I perhaps foolishly... Goodness me, this is getting very congested already, but I can't possibly resist his entreaty.
Extremely grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way. He's been most generous and he's barely begun. But I must have misheard, because I've listened to so many speeches on the topic of law and order from the party opposite, and he must have misspoken. He's suggesting that not only was there a record number of police officers left by the last Conservative government, but crime overall fell by 50%. Have these words ever been issued by the ministers, or do they try to mislead the public at every opportunity?
Order. You want to stand up and correct the record? Go ahead.
Of course, I was saying no individual, but inadvertently, of course, in any minister's case.
Let's be mindful of our language. Chris Philp.
Well, no, it is true that members opposite forget to mention the record police numbers in March 2024 or the reduction in crime that was actually more than 50% over the period. Now, look, I will happily give away quite a lot, but I haven't even started, and I've given away a couple of times already. And I was just going to start by echoing the Police Minister's tribute to police officers up and down the country who every day put themselves in the line of danger. I've attended the annual Police Memorial Service and seen and met with the families of officers who have tragically lost their lives while keeping us safe, and they should remain, I think, at the front of our minds during this afternoon's debate. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Police Minister threw around some big numbers earlier about the increase in police funding that has been announced. But the increase for frontline police forces, the increase being given to police and crime commissioners, amounting to 4.5%, is not enough to meet the funding pressures and the cost pressures which they face. I spoke earlier today to Police and Crime Commissioner Roger Hurst of Essex, who is, as she knows, the finance lead for the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, and Roger Hurst told me that in his assessment, this funding settlement is about £100 million short of the cost pressures police forces will face, meaning they will have to find cuts. And it's not just Roger. The National Police Chiefs Council, the body that represents Chief Constables, said on the 28th of January, and I quote, "Many forces are planning service reductions with consequences for officer numbers, staff numbers and resilience." In other words, both police and crime commissioners and the National Police Chiefs Council say this funding settlement is inadequate to maintain police resources. And it's not just them. The Labour Police and Crime Commissioner of Avon and Somerset has just had to cancel the recruitment of 70 new officers because of, in her words, lower than expected government funding. And the Cambridgeshire Police and Crime Commissioner says the settlement falls short of what is required. The Chief Constable of Cleveland says they face a £4 million funding gap under this settlement. The Essex Police and Crime Commissioner says the government settlement is insufficient to cover rising costs, as I said a moment ago. And Manchester, Greater Manchester Police, say they face a £32 million funding gap. So in summary, Madam Deputy Speaker, this settlement is not enough to enable police forces up and down the country to maintain their level of service. They're going to shrink and their services will be diminished. Now, she mentioned the money being provided for the neighbourhood policing officers, 1,750. Well, in fact, she didn't mention the amount of money being provided by the government, which is £50 million for that purpose. Now, if you divide the one number by the other, you get to £29,000 per officer. And as the National Police Chiefs Council have pointed out, the cost of an officer is on average £68,000. So the government is only funding 42% of the cost, leaving the other 58% completely unfunded. She also forgot to mention in her speech that the government is completely cancelling the funding for antisocial behaviour hotspot patrolling, something introduced by the last government, which frankly should have been continued. And when it comes to the way the money is distributed, it remains the case the funding formula is deeply unfair. Change is long overdue, but I would ask the Minister to urgently bring forward changes to the funding formula to make it fairer. The Metropolitan Police receives by far the highest funding in the country, even accounting for the National Capital City Grant and CT funding. If you adjust for that, they receive £439 per head. But the lowest funded forces, such as Dorset, £255 a head, Essex, £236, Cambridgeshire, £237, or Wiltshire, just £235 per head. They are inadequately funded, and the funding formula urgently needs updating. And I'll ask the Police Minister or her colleague, when she sums up, to address that point. Now, Madam Deputy Speaker, the consequence of this inadequate funding settlement is just the same as the consequence of last year's inadequate funding settlement, when my shadow ministerial colleague, the member for Stockton South, stood at this dispatch box and he warned the minister's predecessor that the funding settlement would lead to reductions in police numbers. He warned very clearly. And we now know that that has come to pass, because the most recent figures, just published a few weeks ago, show that in the year to September 2025, so a year entirely when Labour were in government, the number of police officers fell by 1,318. Numbers being cut under this Labour government. Now, they say they want to get staff. Let me just finish the point, then I'll give way. They say they want to hire staff instead to do jobs behind desks. But the number of police staff fell as well by 529. They talk about PCSOs. Well, the number of PCSOs fell by 204. Special constables down by 514. Police volunteers down by 429. Under this Labour government, that is a reduction in police workforce of 3,000 in just 1 year. Under this Labour government, they are not funding the police properly, and they should be ashamed of themselves. Yes.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way. It's right, there are a huge amount of police staff that are never seen, support staff, admin staff, call centre staff, whatever they might be, and they play an important part in delivering the police services to all of our communities. But is it not the case that visibility in policing is needed, and it is only police officers who are warranted to make arrests when crime is committed? So for all the wonderful people working in the back office of all of our police forces, we still need police officers in the communities tackling the antisocial behaviour that he references, turning up at least occasionally at the parish council where the local police officer still has a reference in the agenda, and visibility absolutely critical around the fear of crime, and a warrant with a police officer absolutely critical in enforcing the law and making arrests.
Is absolutely right. Only uniformed officers or warranted officers can make arrests, and that is why the fall in police numbers under this Labour government is just in 1 second, is so shocking. Now, they talk about neighbourhood officers specifically, but that, of course, ignores things like crime investigation. It ignores things like 999 response. It ignores specialist officers who investigate, for example, sexual offences. It focuses on only one part of policing when total numbers are falling, of course.
Gentlemen, welcome the fact that there are 2,400 more police in our neighbourhoods now than there were at the start of this government.
But the point is, she's cut other areas to do that. She's cut 999 response. She's cut crime investigations. She can use smoke and mirrors by focusing on only one part of the police world. The fact is, total police numbers are down, police staff are down, PCSOs are down, specials are down, and police volunteers are down, all under this Labour government. Now, I think his colleague from Harlow got there first, so I probably ought to give way there first.
I thank the Shadow Secretary of State for giving way, and I do thank him for lobbying on behalf of Essex to get more funding, because clearly I want more funding for Essex as much as he does. I would just quote, I also declare an interest. I've stood against Roger Hurst in 2 elections, but I've got a lot of time for the work he does as a Police and Crime Commissioner. I really want to make that clear. He says in his own website, however, that he welcomes another 69 new recruits into Essex Police, making it the force bigger and stronger than it has ever been before, which doesn't quite fit with what the Shadow Secretary of State said earlier.
Well, Roger Hurst, in common with many police and crime commissioners, has done a valiant job in the face of the inadequate funding. But as he said himself, and I quote Roger verbatim, the government settlement is insufficient to cover rising costs. That is what Roger himself has said. Now, let's look at outcomes, which the Police Minister mentioned. And it is a matter of deep concern, Madam Deputy Speaker, that under this Labour government, shoplifting has gone up by 10% to record ever levels. Robbery from business premises is up by 66% in the last year. Antisocial behaviour has gone up. Rape has gone up by 7% under this government. And sexual offences have gone up by 8%, of course.
When he says that rape has gone up, does he mean that the recorded crime of rape has gone up? And does he recognise that actually everybody in this House should celebrate when women feel more comfortable to come forward to the police?
Well, that isn't what she was saying when the rape figures were going up under the last government. Once is enough. And the fact that reported rapes are going up, to the extent that reflects increased levels of offending, that would be a serious concern. Go on.
What is actually going up is rape charging, and actually, I just to make the record straight, I never ever criticised increased reporting of rape. What I criticised was the decimation under his government of rape charging that led to the worst record in history.
Well, she will know that the change in the rape charge rate followed the disclosure rule changes after the Liam Allen case back in about 2017, and the last government set up Operation Sateria and a whole rape task force designed to increase the rape charging rates, and indeed they were increasing prior to the last election, and I very much hope that this government is continuing the work of Operation Sateria that was started by the last government. Now, in relation to the police reforms the Police Minister referred to, while there are some functions like counter-terrorism and fighting serious and organised crime that may well be better provided on a national basis, we will certainly be opposing on this side of the House the creation of approximately 10 regional mega forces that will see county forces essentially abolished, merged into enormous entities that are very far removed from the communities they serve, which will inevitably see resources drawn away from towns and villages towards large cities. And there is no evidence that large forces are either more efficient or better performing. In fact, the two arguably worst performing forces in the country, the Met and West Midlands, are also the largest forces in the country. And the history of Police Scotland, where they merged 8 police forces into one, has not been a particularly happy episode, and is certainly not a good case study for what is being proposed. So I would ask the Minister to think again about the creation of these mega forces when the examples of the West Midlands, the Met and Police Scotland indicate that large police forces do not perform well. Now, there is one area, Madam Deputy Speaker, where I will agree with the Minister, and indeed more than agree with her, actively support what she is trying to do, and that is the use of technology in catching criminals, and in particular the use of live facial recognition, which she and I have both seen being used very effectively in Croydon town centre and indeed across London, where in the last year 963 arrests have occurred as a result of using live facial recognition of criminals who would not otherwise have been caught, including a man wanted for a double rape dating back 8 years, who would not have been caught but for the use of live facial recognition. So I'd be interested to hear her plans for rolling this technology out across the country, accelerating its use dramatically. And I'd also be interested in her assurance that the consultation she's doing on the use of this technology is going to be carefully calibrated, because there is a risk that the sort of people on the fringes, left and right, who don't like this technology will try and lobby her and will try and persuade her to introduce all kinds of rules and regulations and red tape. And if she gives in to their requests, she may end up inadvertently creating a sort of very bureaucratic system that in practice is very difficult for the police to operate. So I would urge her to think about the mainstream majority who strongly support this technology. Certainly in Croydon, the public support this technology, understanding that it catches criminals and understanding that if you're not on the watch list, your image is immediately and automatically deleted. And I just ask her to make sure that if she does change the rules, she does it in a way that is quite light touch and it doesn't end up potentially strangling what could be one of the most promising and effective crime-fighting technologies this country has seen for many, many decades. And I really hope that is the approach that she plans to take. Madam Deputy, one last one.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend, and he will have noted, as I did, that the Police Minister failed to answer the how. She said she wished to make sure that the creation of these massive new police organisations didn't lead to policing becoming more distant and remote and hard to influence, not least for rural communities, but she couldn't tell us how it would be done. Does he share my concern that we will end up with a larger, more bureaucratic system which is remote from ordinary people, and for people in rural East Yorkshire in particular, they're going to feel far away from decision making?
I think my honourable friend puts it brilliantly. He has articulated exactly why the forced creation of regional megaforces is likely to be a backwards step. Madam Deputy Speaker, this I'm done. But he may find that a matter of considerable relief. Madam Deputy Speaker, in conclusion, sometimes in conclusion are the most popular words I utter in a speech. In conclusion, this.
My honourable friend give way before concluding.
This is the last time.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. But at a time of great pressure on police budgets and my Cheshire police force having to make redundancies, was my right honourable friend as concerned as I was that the Minister felt that the Labour Police Crime Commissioner could spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on vanity projects and accepting it rather than condemning it, and that money should go on frontline policing?
Well, my right honourable friend is absolutely right, and it was disappointing the Police Minister did not substantively respond. She is quite right. Spending money on loads of communications officers instead of police officers to catch criminals is a misallocation of resources, and my right honourable friend is right to call it out. I will conclude here, Madam Deputy Speaker, by saying that this police funding settlement is not adequate to meet funding pressures. It will lead to continued reductions in police numbers across England and Wales, which will leave our constituents and our countries less safe.
Neighbouring Member of Parliament MP for Carshalton and Wallington is Bobby Dean, Liberal Democrat. He has held the seat since 2024 and currently serves as the Liberal Democrat shadow leader of the House of Commons. Bobby Dean MP. Contact details. Email bobby.dean.mp 027,219 6,160. Constituency Office, Kennedy House, 5 Nightingale Road, Carshalton, SM52DN. Westminster Office, House of Commons, London, SW1A0AA. Important information for contacting him. Include your address. As with the Croydon MPs, you must include your full name and home address, including postcode, in your email. MPs are only permitted to act on behalf of their own constituents. Appointments. If you wish to meet him in person, it is recommended to email first to book an appointment at one of his local surgeries, as demand is off. He is also active on social media if you wish to follow his local updates: X, Twitter, at Bobby Dean, Facebook, facebook.com/BobbyWDean, Blue Sky, at bobbywdean.bsky.social.